Okay, so both you and I, Konstantin, we've got very left-wing kind of echo chambers on social media, and every so often the Tories will, poll 38% or above, and there'll be this outpouring of emotion from people like, I don't understand, how could this be? This certainly doesn't reflect the mood at hot yoga. Why is this evil, selfish bastard party still doing okay in the polls? And I thought, every once in a while, I need to let them know why that is. And I wanted to discuss with you a few reasons as to why the Conservative Party might not have completely collapsed. I mean, first up, do you have any theories?
Well, I mean, the vaccine, first of all, right? People feel like we're about to be out of this, I think, probably quite naively, but nonetheless, people feel that way, right? So, I mean, and for me, as someone who voted Remain, as you know, last few weeks has been quite an experience, because I'm going, oh, I see. Maybe this is why we voted Leave as a country, because look at what's happening in Europe versus what's happening in the UK. So I think that's probably part of it. And even people who are very anti-Boris and anti-Tory would have to concede that on that issue they've done very well comparatively. And also, you've got Keir Starmer's abstention rebellion, as I call it, right? Who are probably quite hard for them to make a mark, because other than we needed to give everyone 7 vaccines or whatever, they can't really say anything, can they? Because they are probably even more pro lockdown, pro everything else.
Yeah, there was the, when they were talking about priorities for vaccinations, they were sort of saying, they'd made so many people a priority. In the end, you were like, well, they're going teachers, teaching assistants, dinner ladies. What most people think. One of the things that was always a danger was that when they sort of made the PPE shortage, which incidentally was felt in developed countries all around the world, Germany, the US, Russia, although Russia probably claimed it didn't happen. It did happen.
Easy now, mate. I'm going to get some Novichok in your next cup of tea, mate.
Don't tell Vlad. But but they laid that so squarely at the government's door. Then what that meant was, when the vaccine rollout went well, you couldn't then flip the script and go, oh, no, this is the NHS, right?
I think that's part of it. Labour obviously can't really compete. I haven't really heard anything out of Labour that would get my attention, let alone get me excited about anything. And, I'm a floating voter. I've only voted Tory once, which was the last election, and that was mainly because Corbyn was so bad. So, I'm listening, but they're not really saying anything. I think that's another part of it. Is like, how are you going to cut through if the party itself doesn't seem to be saying much, and then you've got Zara Sultana running around saying all kinds of crazy stuff.
Corbyn basically had the same front bench for 5 years, wasn't it? It was Corbyn, McDonnell, Abbott and Thornberry. And for some reason, it always does sound like a sort of like the Goons type lineup. And it often felt like that too. It was like a Manchester City manager that had like 100 million. He had good MPs behind him, but he never changed it.
I think the whole big beast era of politics more generally is sort of over. We've got these, as Peter Hitchens described, as small feral creatures that populate the political sphere.
I guess the only thing you could say for that is you did know who those people were, right? I could tell you, right, Keir Starmer leads the Labour Party. Annalise Dodds, possibly the most insipid shadow chancellor I think I've ever seen. She's up against Rishi, is incredibly popular. But Annalise Dodds has like the permanent look of a girl on her first day at boarding school. She just looks terrified.
She's very sweet, but you need a little bit more than that if you're...
Well, it's her and Helen Whatley have got the same thing going on. They look like they've both been dropped from the hockey team. What most people think. I think you raise a good point there in terms of what are Labour identifiable for. It does seem like Keir Starmer, nothing that he does is that genuine. Like when he took a knee, it felt like someone had told him, you should take a knee, and he just looked awkward. Either that or he's 57 and getting up wasn't easy. When he sits in front of the Union Jack, he sort of seems like a parent going, oh, you like all this, don't you? You like the old Nintendos, don't you?
The thing with Labour is until they as a party embrace the fact that actually, most people in this country don't hate Britain for some reason, inexplicably, right? Until they embrace that, I don't think they're going to be a credible party, to be honest with you.
It must be hard for the stormtroopers. Have you heard that one? The Star. They do get very sensitive about old Keir. They always took the piss out of the Corbynistas for being a bit ideological, but they get he's a good man. Oh yeah, good, very good. What, we should have Boris, should we? And you think, look, the point is for all Boris's faults, and he's fucking shambolic, and
he's terrible.
And at PMQs, I mean, like the one thing you were told is he'll think on his feet. I mean, it'll be funny. That was what we were promised. I haven't heard any zingers, one-liners, put-downs, or anything. But if you still can't be more popular than that, that's the problem, isn't it? It starts to reflect badly. And people say, well, Starmer's been marmalising him at PMQs. You go, fucking who watches? PMQs is a Twitter obsession, isn't it?
Boris is such a British prime minister. There's probably not another country in the world where someone like Boris could be the leader of the country. I mean, the idea, like, Russians just like can't comprehend how you could have this sort of buffoonish character be your prime minister. It's a very British thing. It's incredible.
For all his obvious faults, and there are plenty of those, delivering Brexit, whether it's a good Brexit deal or not, in terms of Western democracies, no one's done anything that radical for a long, long, long time. And I think that people overlook the simple reality of a politician saying, I'm going to do something and doing it, because there's not a lot else happening if you look at established and long-running democracies.
There's a lot of people I hear from who are conservatives who go, well, I'm not sure he's conservative or the party's conservative under him,
I mean, it's kind of moved into a very sort of centrist Blairite administration. I struggle to see much of a difference if you take Brexit out of the equation, in terms of not just what Boris has done, but in terms of what I think he will do going forward, what the plans are for the country. It's a sort of quasi Blairite administration. And I suppose that's the irony, isn't it? Because the 2019 election, yet again, it was distilled down into this binary good and bad, left versus the far right. I'm going like, my God, man. If Boris Johnson, a metropolitan liberal, right? The most illiberal thing he's done, arguably, is Brexit, right? You look at all his other kind of policy instincts. If you see him as far right, do you know what I mean? Then you also sort of see Ken Clarke as far right. I know that, in the social media kind of Twitterati sphere, we all want elections really every year. We sort of want it to be like The Voice.
It's good content, mate.
Yeah, it's good content. It keeps us ticking over. It's basically sport for us. I don't think the British public, generally speaking, you talk about what most people think. I think that it's like we elected them for 5 years. It would be nice if for the first time since sort of 2010, we had like a 5-year parliament, and it wasn't, I don't think people do want to constantly be going back to the polls, because there are implications to that. You can't really roll out any sort of fucking agenda.
I'm not really sure that anyone really wants an election. I mean, it would be good entertainment for us, but even then, I'm not even sure it would be for us, because again, there's not that much to put between the parties.
This is what my hunch would be with Labour if there was an election. Their manifesto would be very, very kind of one nation Labour, veering towards patriotic, old school working class values. And it would be kind of like a Trojan horse for a lot of other stuff, because it's just about getting the levers of power. And I think that in the past, when Blair got power, the party machinery was built around him, wasn't it? These big dogs of him and Mandelson, and there was quite a right of centre vibe to the Labour leadership. But now, outside of Keir Starmer, where's his sort of centrist backup?
Yeah,
they can pull him left, right, and centre because of the way that Labour make policy with the NEC and stuff. I do think that it would see an escalation in the culture war, which obviously the right wing invented and then are fighting back on, even though they didn't.
That is such a clever move by the left, by the way.
Well, it's gaslighting. It's the word that they made up, isn't it?
Yeah. They spent 10 or 15 years taking over every major institution in the country: education, media, etc., television, etc., it's comedy, everything, art. Like they've got complete control of it, and they are now implementing all this crazy shit. And if anyone like us goes, actually, I don't think we should be like doing. Suddenly we invented the culture war.
What most people think.
Do you want to know one good bit of news? If Labour were to win an election, right? By the logic of a lot of left-wing comics, they say the reason right-wing comics shouldn't be on topical panel shows is because the Tories are in power and you've got to punch up, right? What I don't realise is the implicit kind of consequence of that is if Labour were in power, we'd have to pension off all the left-wing comics. So I'll say here and now, vote Labour.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Labour, as you know, Geoff, the one thing about left-wing comedians in particular is they're incredibly ideologically consistent. So that will definitely happen.
That will definitely happen,
yeah.
and they will definitely accept that now they can no longer punch up. They will just gracefully back away from the satirical centre stage. So I think we're both agreed. Labour 2024.